Are you looking for a 55 and older community here on the Emerald Coast? Well, you're in luck because in this video, I'm going to go over those options and it's kind of going to be quick because there's only two options. But don't worry, I've got some surprises at the end. Okay, so here's the thing. Even though a community is not labeled 55 and older, doesn't mean it won't fit for that demographic. In this video, I am going to go over those two neighborhoods that are 55 and older, like strictly 55 and older, but then I'm also going to go over what those buyers typically want and need in their homes. And then I'm going to give you some other options because like I said, there's only two communities here and they usually don't work for most people, or at least I would say 30% of the people they work for. So I want to give you some other options because at the end of the day, it's not really about the label or the type of community. It's about if the home fits your needs and your wants. So a little bit about why this topic actually kind of is near and dear to my heart. My parents are in their late 70s. They've actually lived in a 55 and older community for at least the last 10 to 15 years. And they've specifically chosen those neighborhoods for certain reasons. But they're getting a little bit on the older side and I would like to have them move closer to me and, looking into that kind of community for myself, for my parents. I quickly learned that there's just not, that it's just not available. And I kind of already knew that because typically if you've got 55 and older communities in your area, people know about them. I knew that there was one because it's here in Navarre, but I knew that wasn't going to work for my parents. So doing some more research and digging around, besides those two, your other options really are a little bit too far away for my liking anyway. So we're going to get into, like I said, those two neighborhoods, some of what those buyers are looking for, and then some other options in this video. All right, so let's first go over those two communities because like I said, those are the only two from Pensacola all the way up to Panama City. There is one in Panama City, but up to that area there in the whole of the Emerald Coast, there are two. One is in Milton and one is in Navarre, and they are vastly different. So we're just going to jump right into it so you can kind of start seeing if those two will work for you. All right, so first up is Windsor Villas. That's in Milton. It is a gated community. They do have a little clubhouse where they have events and things like that. The homes were built mostly in the early 2000s and they're from 1,300 square feet up to 1,800 square feet. Most of them are 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, around that 1,600 square foot mark. There are 92 homes and the price point is in the mid to upper 200s. There is a community pool as well as that multi-purpose room in the clubhouse. They do have different events and things like that. So it is an active community. It's not just one of those things where you move in and just pray for the best. They do have events that are scheduled so that you get to stay active and do all those things. So the pros of Windsor Villa is that it is a traditional 55 and older community where they are single family homes. So resale is also going to be a little bit easier, especially because those homes do not go up very frequently. There's only 92 of them. I see maybe one come up maybe every third month. Like they just don't come up very often. So that is a pro for resale. Getting into it is a con, but I'll get into that in a second. Because it is a single family home, you're also going to get a little bit more flexibility with financing, and you're still going to get that low maintenance living because of the HOA that is in place. Now, cons are that it is harder to get into that neighborhood because they just don't come up as often. There are still HOA fees, but they're not very high. You're in Milton, so you're a little bit farther away from the beach if that's one reason why you want to live down here. And like I said, the floor plans, there's just not very many of them and they are on the smaller side, which typically my 55 and older community love. But in case you did want that 3rd bedroom for guests or something like that, you're gonna have to wait a little longer because like I said, usually there are those 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom options. All right, so the second 55 and older community here is in Navarre and it is a mobile home park. We don't call them trailers anymore, they're mobile homes, but it is a mobile home park, so it is vastly different. So instead of that single family home that's built on a slab, these are mobile homes. They do have a lot more stuff and amenities than the one in Milton does though. They've got horseshoes, they've got the community center as well. All right, they do have a few more amenities than the one in Milton, and I'm gonna cheat and look at my notes because it actually is a little, not a long list, but a little bit more list than the other one. So they have horseshoes, a billiard room, a library, boat and RV storage, and then they do have the planned social calendars. I actually know one of my clients sold their home and he moved into there and he loves it. And one of the first things, like week 1, he was like, Kristen, I'm already doing like a potluck gathering at the clubhouse. They do a lot of stuff around the holidays as well. But he loves it in there. It's very active. So if you like that lifestyle and want to really be involved in your community, it might be a great fit for you. There are 176 home sites in there, and they range from $49,000 all the way up to low 200s. There is a catch though. So these are mobile homes. You are renting the lot, and that price, and again, I'm going to cheat because they're very specific numbers. The lot rental price, so this is in addition to buying your property, you're paying anywhere from $696 to $798 a month. So there is a pretty hefty monthly fee there. So you might get a lower price point, but you have to consider that monthly lot rental fee for the mobile home. Now, your pros for this community is that you are at a lower price point, so your cost of entry is lower, and you're right close to the beach. Where it is located, you're maybe a 10-minute drive straight over the bridge to the beach. So super close. Another pro is that they are smaller homes, obviously, a little bit easier to maintain. But your cons, and these can sometimes be the deal breaker for most people, is that financing can be very tricky, especially because it is a mobile home. There are a lot more rules in place, so financing can be a little bit trickier. So usually cash is the better option, unless you happen to get lucky and that trailer has never moved. But there's, like I said, there's a lot of red tape and hoops to jump through with mobile home financing. So that's just one thing to just know to get into it. If that's something that you're going to do, we just have to, be prepared. Another con is that you don't own the land. You just own the mobile home. So you do not own the land, which again, if anything were to happen and you want to move out, whatever, you're just selling that property. So resale wise down the road, if someone were wanting to own the land underneath it, they're not going to want to go for your mobile home. Another con is that most of these homes are on the older side, which doesn't mean that they're not taken care of, but insurance might be a little bit of a hiccup with it being older. And then finally, where do you go for a hurricane? This is one thing that you do have to plan for. Being in a mobile home, when there's a storm coming through, you are more vulnerable in those. So you do have to have a backup plan for if there's a hurricane that comes through. So both communities are great options. You just need to make sure that you kind of weed through the fine print and the financial parts of things to make sure that it fits your lifestyle and your budget. So before we get into some other options, hi, I'm Kristen Weller. I am a local real estate agent here on the Emerald Coast, and I would love to help you out. If you are yourself looking for a 55 and older community, or maybe you're a kiddo and you're trying to help your parents move closer to you, I would love to help you. All of my information is going to be popping up here on the screen. Reach out to me and we can get started. All right, so let's talk about some other options, because there are a few other specific 55 and older communities close to here. And when I say here, I say like Navarre, Fort Walton area, because usually in our area, when people are moving down here, it's because they want to be close to their military kiddos, or they had once lived here before and they want to live here again, that kind of thing. But there are a couple other options. So if you jump over the Alabama state line in Foley and Orange Beach, there's a couple of 55 and older communities over there. Actually, there's quite a few. Or there is one I mentioned earlier in Panama City. It's Margaritaville. It's Latitude Margaritaville. And that one I will just say, so you're still in Florida in that case. So if you want the benefits of, the property taxes and lower property taxes, and if you are military and you're 100% disabled, you get some more benefits on the Florida side of things. But I'm going to cheat and look at my notes because I do have some specifics on that community. So those homes were built from 2019 on up, so it is a newer community. And then pricing wise, they're anywhere from $375, and you're going to get like a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom home, all the way up over $1 million. There are some huge, beautiful, but huge houses in there. But they can get pretty pricey really quick. Clubhouse, they have a restaurant on site, they have a fitness center, an indoor pool, an outdoor pool, aerobics, a dance studio, a card room, an arts and crafts studio, woodworking shop, and a performance and movie theater. So they have a ton of amenities, but just know that they all comes at a price. So if you're okay with the Panama City area, that might be a great option for you. Now, if you're sitting here and you're thinking, well, none of these are really jumping out at me. I don't really want to pay, close to $1 million, and I don't want to live up in Milton, and I don't want to live in a trailer park. Don't worry, I got you, friend. I'm going to give you some other options here, but first we're going to go over what I'm noticing my 55 and older community lookers are wanting in their home. So the big takeaways is what I'm noticing is that they're asking for low maintenance inside and outside. They don't want a lot of yard work. They don't want an older home that has a lot of repair needs to do. They want something that's simple and taken care of and easy to maintain. They typically want single level living because, let's be honest, I'm 48 and I don't even want to do stairs. So, single level living in our area is actually quite common. It's hard to find 2-story homes. So in our area, it's super easy to get some 1-story homes. They're also looking to possibly be able to age in place. So that might mean having more than 1 bedroom, if they're married, having their each own bedroom, or having that extra space to where, God forbid, if it happens that you might need an extra bed, like the hospital grade beds or things like that, you've got the space for it. But basically being able to stay, close to family and close to hospitals and things where you can stay in your home for as long as possible. But this also means walk-in showers, wider areas for toilets so that you can have a walker come to it, things like that. So not necessarily like handicap grade or coded for handicap, but just more space to get around and maneuver. If you have a wheelchair or walker, or, you can't do stairs, you can't do even just a little hump over like a, in the shower, sometimes they leave like a little lip so that water doesn't get out. So all those things. So, that helps with aging in place, but just even in, any time you get over that 50-year-old mark, like I said, we have a walk-in shower and I love it. Another thing that they're looking for is affordability and predictable costs. So typically we want to see HOA dues, if there are any, on the lower end, so that if they do go up, it might not be by much, or hopefully not by much. Again, with the price of the home, typically a lot of the times when you're moving into that 55 and older community, especially for the first time, you're coming from the house where you raised your family in. It might be a 3 or 4 bedroom home, and you want to downsize so that you're able to basically pay it off in cash or have a very low mortgage, which obviously for our 55 and older, usually it's a little bit more the 65 and older, but they're starting to be retired and not have that income coming in, or at least not the 8 to 5 income coming in. So making sure that those costs are doable. They still want a social life though, so make sure that those areas, like the couple that I mentioned, especially the one that's in Panama City, there's a ton of stuff there. My parents actually live in the Villages near Orlando, and there's stuff going on all the time. Like they've got little dance, or like little, I don't know what you call them, like they're not little community centers because they're like out in the open, and like they'll have like live music and bands and people will go dancing. They've got like, not the card room like the one Margaritaville had, but like just in the community centers, my mom will go do cards and things like that at, they have separate times that they go do all that stuff. My dad goes golfing, like all this stuff. So, our area, luckily, we have a lot of golfing around. We've got lots of church groups. And actually, when I was trying to convince my parents to come up here, I found I forget what they called it, but it was basically like a 55 and older for women, like book club that's at the library. But there's all kinds of stuff once you start kind of digging through things that might not be so advertised, but there is a lot of stuff to get involved with here, especially if you're a churchgoer, all kinds of stuff with the church. They still want location as far as being convenient to things. So, being next to hospitals, medical facilities, restaurants, grocery stores, all that stuff. And luckily in Navarre, and really in the whole Panhandle, we've got great healthcare, in my opinion, lots of shopping, lots of restaurants, things like that. And if you have something that's a bigger store that you don't have right in your local area, you only have to go to Pensacola or Destin to get the bigger items, like the bigger stores, if you will, so not too far. And then finally, they're looking for peace and quiet. Typically when people want that 55 and older community, it's because they don't want to be around a lot of kids. Doesn't mean they don't love kids, it just means they don't want the daily, little squeals and screams and running over bikes and, dodging balls in the street and all that stuff. So they want that peace and quiet, which that's the one part where it does kind of divide the 55 and older community to the community that's not. So that's one thing you can't really get around too much when you live in a community that's not 55 and older. So that you might be compromising a little bit on that, looking outside of those kinds of communities, but everything else I can get you. So before we keep going, I would love to hear if those, if you are looking in the 55 and older community homes, did I hit the nail on the head with what you guys are looking for? Or are you looking for something completely different that I completely missed? I would love to be, one, educated on what others are looking for. Like I said, this is just based off what my parents are looking for, what I've seen other clients in that realm looking for, and doing a little bit of research on my own, obviously. But if I missed something, I would love to hear it, and I'll add it to my next video. But put it down in the comments, or you feel free to message me, because like I said, I always love learning about what other people are looking for, especially in that market, because we just don't have those communities here besides those two. So learning more and seeing if I can find neighborhoods that fit better are always helpful to me. All right, so let's talk about what neighborhoods in Navarre. I'm gonna go over Navarre because I could spend hours on other neighborhoods, but I'm gonna hone in on Navarre, one, because I kind of did the research for my parents. So we're gonna hone in on Navarre, and I'm gonna give you some options that I think would work if that list that I just rattled off is kind of what you're looking for. So first up is one of my favorite neighborhoods, Lighthouse Point. Now, it is in Gulf Breeze, but it's just over the border. It is on the sound side, but there are a ton of homes that are not in a flood zone, so you don't have to worry there, because trust me, I was trying to keep that in mind for budget. The homes are on the smaller side, so typically you're gonna get 2,200 square feet to, I mean, there's some smaller ones in there, maybe 1,300 square feet. There's a couple homes in there that are only 2-bedroom, or they might be 3-bedroom, but the other 2 bedrooms are really small, that kind of thing. So a smaller, manageable home, a smaller lot. Most of the homes are under a 1/4 acre, but it's just a really cute neighborhood. Anytime I go through there, whether I'm showing homes or making videos like this or anything like that, people are always out walking their dog and they're waving hi. Like, it's just such a nice, friendly neighborhood. There is an HOA, but there's no community center or anything like that. But what it does have, I find a lot of my clients love, like I've told my husband, I'm like, if we stay here and never downsize and want to stay like not on the beach, but on the northern part of Navarre, I would love to live in that neighborhood because you have sound access, and the sound access at Lighthouse Point is awesome because there's a long ramp that you can walk out to, and it goes out onto the water. And then on the dock there, they have like a little area, like a bench, so you can just sit out there, but there's also like a little beachy area. So if you wanted to bring a chair and sit there, you could. It's so peaceful. And every time I've gone, I'm usually the only one there. And if I'm not, it's because there might be like a mom with her little kid playing in the sand because it's before nap time and she's trying to wear her kid out. But I've seen dolphins when I'm sitting out there. Like, it's just really peaceful. So I love that neighborhood, one, because it fits budget, because they are, I'm going to cheat and look at my notes. They're typically around that $400,000 mark, which might be on a little bit of a high end, but you know, you're getting sound access as well. HOA is only $300 a year, so that is inexpensive for the amenity that you're getting of the sound access. They're mostly one level, or they're all one level homes. There's a couple along the water that are built on stilts, but everything else is just one level homes. And like I said, they're smaller, way more manageable, and I just love that community. Okay, next up is another one that's in Gulf Breeze, but it's just on the other edge of Gulf Breeze, but it's called Hidden Shores. It is on the north side of 98, so it's not sound side, it's on the north side. But again, these homes are, I won't say they're small, but they're on the medium to smaller side. Lots, again, are around a 1/4 acre. They're not huge. There might be a couple, corner lots that might be 1/3 of an acre, but for the most part, you're looking at a 1/4 acre or smaller. They have a really cool, it's probably a retention pond, but they make it sound like it's like a little lake in there. But they've got like a little walking path, and again, they've got like a little gazebo that goes out. So again, just something that's, if you do want to stay active and go on walks and things like that, it'd be really cool to do it in that neighborhood. They are all one level homes. Your price point is a little bit lower than Lighthouse Point. You're looking at mid to high 3s, and your HOA dues are only $495.95 a year. All right, your third option is Cardinal Estates. Now this one is in Navarre, and it's in East Navarre. The reason I bring this one up is because if you are here because you are prior military, if you're retired, you still want access to the commissary, and still want access to maybe some of the parks and things to go look at the planes and whatnot on base. Being in East Navarre gets you that much closer to Hurlburt. Now, there is no HOA in this neighborhood, and you probably wouldn't even know that it's called Cardinal Estates because there's no sign. However, the homes are on the smaller side, smaller to medium. Your price points, again, around that 300 to mid 3s. There's no HOA dues, so you don't have to worry there. The homes are one level, the smaller lots, so it kind of fits with that budget and with the low maintenance. But being location-wise, you're right next to a big Walmart, and you're super close, well, as close as you can be in Navarre to get to Hurlburt. So, and you're still close to the beach and all that good stuff. Okay, and last, and now there are a lot more options, but I kind of wanted to give you kind of like a highbrow look at 4 popular ones for 55 and older clients of mine. Your last one is Fountainview. Now this one's in Navarre as well, and it's in East Navarre. This one is on the north side of 98. Most of the homes are either stucco or brick, so it's a little bit of a nicer, at least aesthetically looking community. There is a community pool. So Fountainview is one of the smaller neighborhoods on this list. Cardinal Estates isn't very big either. The other 2 are on the larger side, but Fountainview, there's really only like, it makes kind of like an F, like it goes up and then there's like a little street and a little street, but there's not very many homes. The homes there are a little bit more on the pricier side, but you're getting some more, I won't say luxury, but they are a little bit more than just a standard home, if you will. Cheat and look at my notes here. They're in the upper 3s all the way up to, you can get into the high 4s pretty quickly, especially if there's a pool at the house. And your HOA dues are $600 a year. So a little bit on the higher end. But like I said, the homes are all one level. They're smaller lots. And you do have a community pool. So you do have a bigger feature there. But like I said, these 4 neighborhoods just scratch the surface on things that my 55 and older community like to buy. I've also had ones that they buy, just a regular lot. It might even be half acre, but for the most part, what I'm seeing is they want smaller homes, smaller lots. And these 4 communities just really check all those boxes. But like I said, this is not an exhaustive list. There's a ton of other options. And again, let me know if you're looking for that, and I can set you up with, a search. We can actually do a Zoom call and kind of go through the neighborhoods together to see what you like. So not a problem. So at the end of the day, you need to ask yourself a couple questions. How much are you willing to spend for HOA dues? Because usually with a fixed budget, you need to make sure that you can afford those things. Do you care if your land is leased or if you own it? Because again, if you're strictly looking for 55 and older, your 2 options, one you're gonna own the land and one that you're not. What are the HOA rules? If it is a community that has an HOA, what are those rules? Do they have to have, are they allowed to have basketball hoops on the street? Because if they do, that might not be a neighborhood for you, because you're going to be dealing with kids in and out, like swerving around them and stuff. But is it, you need to ask yourself what your finance options are, again, because that mobile home, you might be limited in those. And then finally, what's the resale like going down the road? And again, pretty much for the most part, and the ones that I've just given you, the only one you might be tricky with is the Colonial Park Estates. Just again, because it's a mobile home, but that doesn't mean it's a bad choice. So I'm not trying to make it like bad on that neighborhood. It's a great option. Like I said, my client loves it there. So, but there's a little bit of, things to go through if you do one in that neighborhood. So just things to think about. All right, so that does it. Again, there's not a ton of options here, unfortunately, but you do have options. They're just not all 55 and older communities. So again, I hope this helps a little bit as to what to expect if you're moving in this area and you are used to a 55 and older community. And if this helped, I would love it if you gave a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and make sure you hit the bell because I make a new video every week. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, real estate doesn't have to be overwhelming or stressful. I help my clients every step of the way, whether they're buying or selling, and hopefully we have a little fun along the way. So see you next time.